Welcome once again to the Road to Better Beekeeping educational program. And today we're going to talk about weak colonies coming out of winter and the 4 ways you can fix them, so they'll recover and take off instead of lingering and being dinks all season. Our educational program facilitates mentoring and coaching resources for those who feel isolated and lacking support for their beekeeping endeavors. We eliminate frustration, fear, and information overwhelm. So join us for support, self-confidence, and success. So this is how it should look at the peak of the season, but it won't if you start out with a small cluster. Our first focus in early spring should be identifying the weak ones, those units that are just hanging on to what strength they have left and need a bit of intensive care to be something more. Left to linger in the spring means a poor performer for the rest of the season due to lack of proper growth from a slow start of a contracted cluster and a smaller brood nest. These guys never seem to recover or do better unless you give them a leg up. In order to do that, we have to know what it looks like out there in the boxes. Getting a sense of what's left and what isn't is necessary to move forward. Doing assessments early to figure out what you have, what you need to replace, and what equipment needs to be cleaned out and prepped for the new season is just common sense. We'll talk about using screen bottom board inserts a little later, but there's always a point in early spring where you can just pop the top and look down between the frames to figure out how many seams of bees you have in each unit. Less than 3 frames of a cluster is a candidate for intervention. Once the pollen flow is on, and they're bringing in a bit of nectar, we can relax a little on feeding pollen sub, but not so much on the carbohydrate. What to do with the wee ones that are too weak to bring in their own groceries? Let's see if we can fix that. Here's the big picture position. You strengthen the weak colonies if you want to save the genetics. Big money players will tell you that it's not worth the time and that they're weak for a reason. And I'd agree with the valid point that they're weak for a reason. But was that reason the beekeeper? We manage these bees with good intentions. However, sometimes not as well or as correctly as we should. Was the queen laying well in the fall? Did we treat enough for mites? Was there enough food to feed all of the cluster? Those are questions you need to answer to improve your own management skills. So what if you split them too hard, or kept taking brood and bees from them to strengthen other colonies? Hard to make an objective analysis of your bee team when you've handicapped them. So, if you want to save them, here are 4 ways to strengthen a weak colony in the spring. How to know if they're weak without opening the boxes and creating more problems than you started with? Here's some tips for that as well. Monitoring. What does that look like in early spring? Well, first, watching the colonies for activity just a few minutes during the most active part of the day will tell you how they're doing. Then watch what they're bringing in. Look for pollen colors and know what plants produce what color pollens so you know what's coming in to know if they're making brood in there. Lastly, how many foragers do they have to collect resources? If they're not piling up at the front door during the heat of the day on a sunny afternoon, you may have a weak unit. So now let's talk about that bottom board insert idea. Always a bonus for data collection is to have a screen bottom board. I tell all my beginners to start with a screen bottom board just for this very reason. Because you can collect an immeasurable amount of bee data just by looking at the insert and counting seams of debris for strength, types of debris for resource utilization, amount of debris for brood rearing data, and mites. What's the mite load in there? In the spring, that would be a red flag. So lots of data on that little piece of plastic if you use it right. So now let's move on to the actual fixes. Ways to repopulate a colony. First, we're going to go through the cold weather options. So these are options for when the weather's just not quite conducive to really messing around in the boxes. The first one is the simple forager transfusion swap. So this bee transfusion, in a pinch, you can swap out a strong hive location for a weak one. If you do it during the heat of the day, It'll ensure that the foragers that are out during the day come back to the weak unit and repopulate it. This is great for adding numbers to a weak unit, just enough to push the brood rearing and get it to build so they can make it around the corner to a warmer temperature that supports a frame of brood and bees type injection. And we'll go over that next. These bees are foragers though. You don't get nurse bees with this. It's just a stopgap and won't help for very long. Eventually you'll have to give them some brood and bees. So know that this will only buy some time and not solve the problem long term. Number 2 is just keep them warm strategy. So in a pinch in the colder weather, you can take a weak unit and put it over a strong one with a double screen board so that the bees just stay put but stay warm. The weak cluster will retain its bees and the temps from the strong unit below will keep the brood and queen safe. You do have to maintain good food resources in that unit still, and an entrance opposite the lower unit. They still need bees, but will survive until temps support that option. Now let's talk about some of the warmer weather options. They require a bit better conditions, and the first one is the whole frame injection. So infusing more population can be easier done with adding entire frames of brood and bees into a weak unit. The trick is, you really must be careful about when you do that. The new frames of brood need to come with enough bees to cover that brood just in case the temps dip at night. If you don't have an effective population to cover them all, you'll lose some. Our last method, of course, is to go ahead and do a combine over a stronger hive with a queen excluder and newspaper. I like to spray mine down with a little honeybee healthy syrup again to mask the mismatched pheromones. And some will tell you the newspaper is optional. I also have a medium between them, just because that's how I overwinter in a deep and a medium. This is a riskier option due to the ability of any workers from the weaker unit to drift to the more populated cluster, and I have had that happen, leaving a queen behind. Although maybe they knew she wasn't worth saving. I've also been told that a second excluder is required so the queens can't get at each other, although I've never had that problem myself. So the rule of thumb is that the stronger unit needs to be full of bees, not a medium strength colony, but a really strong one. One of those ones that you think is going to probably swarm early is a good candidate. That way you'll take strength off that swarming unit at the same time. Or another option is just to recombine them with a queenless colony, or a split if it's available. So those are all the ways you can go ahead and easily fix weak colonies coming out of winter. Good luck and have fun. So there's another installment of our Road to Better Beekeeping educational program. This should give you lots of solutions to a common problem that work in specific circumstances so you can pick and choose which one might work best for you. I know it can be difficult finding help, and this is my way of supporting those of you that have had the same start I did. A lack of beekeeping mentor, no structured learning path, and too much overwhelming information online to wade through. You don't want to keep repeating the same mistakes every season, and taking care of the bees with success is your goal. So this system I've built is structured for your success. A roadmap with support, built by a seasoned educator with a lifetime of experience in managed livestock, and who's been refined in the fire of teaching in universities and institutions across the country. One way to make positive incremental improvement, of course, is moving your skills and knowledge forward in small steps. Biting off more than you can chew is never a good idea, and only creates frustration and failure. Add to that a bit of problem solving and mistake reduction, and voila! You are a better beekeeper. How do we improve skills, increase knowledge, and reduce mistakes the fastest and easiest way? We're here to help you by giving you that secret ingredient to success with bees, a good beekeeping coach or mentor. We'll not only guide you through the steep learning curve of beekeeping, we'll answer questions and get you clarity each study hall session throughout the season. This is what we do: teach, nurture, mentor, coach, and guide, so you can enjoy your time with the bees. To facilitate learning, we support our beginning beekeepers and even our more experienced ones with regular study halls and Q&A sessions to give our students timely and seasonal guidance for related answers and solutions. We have a beekeeping chat and beekeeping discussion thread inside the platform for open discussion and interaction of our beekeeping community. Also provided is a beekeeper blog section for current happenings in our hives. If you want to know more about each of our membership levels, there's a link to that as well. Here's our list of features and benefits. And this very topic on fixing weak colonies is in our roadmap program in Step 6. You'll find the link to it in the video description below. So there you go. Tons of resources, lots of support, and a tried and true direction for an epic beekeeping journey. Not just any journey, but a successful one, where you come out the other side with confidence and measurably improved skills. Your success is our success, so we hope to see you inside the program.